Second oral question, Baroness McIntosh of Pickering.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper and refer to the private member's bill I have before the House on road accident offences caused by bikes, e-bikes and e-scooters.
The Government regularly speaks to the Motor Insurance Bureau and insurers as we develop our policy on e-scooters. This includes discussions about personal injury and property damage costs being covered by motorists through the Motor Insurance Bureau's Uninsured Drivers Agreement, where an illegal e-scooter is at fault in a collision, ensuring victims are fairly compensated. The e-scooters in the Department's rental trials, managed by the relevant local transport authorities, are covered by insurance.
May I thank the noble lord for that question. He will be aware that the cost is £530 million that all motorists pay for the uninsured losses of all victims of all uninsured vehicles, including illegal scooters. May I ask the noble lord what the government intends to do to close this gap where there is no insurance offered by the market for illegally operated e-scooters and other such vehicles?
The noble Baroness is rightly persistent on this subject, and as she knows, I've offered to meet her on it. The previous government commenced trials but didn't develop or introduce legislation. We recognise the depth of public concern and are actively considering next steps. In the meantime, I understand that the vast majority of claims related to e-scooters to the MIB are of less than £50,000, so likely to be a small proportion of the 530 million that she mentioned.
Lords, e-scooters are incredibly quiet and therefore dangerous on pavements. What action is the government taking to prevent e-scooters being used on pavements?
Yeah.
The use of e-scooters needs to be needs legislation to regulate it, and this is a question which I've answered in the House before, and no doubt will continue to come until we produce draft legislation. The issues are complex, and noble lords will know that I replied to the noble Baroness Pidgeon and put in the library a resume of the legislation applying in all European countries, which has vast differences in where you can use them, whether you should have a helmet, whether there's an age limit, whether they should be registered, and whether they should be insured. We are working hard through those issues. They're not easy to solve, but the noble Baroness is right that actually determining what can be used on pavements and what is safe, in particular in a world where people with disabilities are rightly very worried about this, is very important.
My Lords, even when things are made legal, we know that they can be abused. There has to be enforcement. In the case of e-bikes, they're supposed to only travel at 15.5 miles per hour maximum and not be able to be throttled up to that speed, and yet around us all the time we see employees effectively of multinational companies delivering our groceries and our takeaways who are being exploited on illegal and uninsured vehicles. Will you take that into account when considering any regime for e-scooters?
Yeah.
My noble friend is absolutely right, and the speed limit of 15.5 determines the point at which a bicycle, which is an electric bicycle capable of more speed than that, is actually, of course, a vehicle which needs to be licensed. The enforcement of the law is a matter for chief police officers, but we are very clearly considering what we can do in this area, because I recognise, as much as everybody else in this House does, that actually these alleged bicycles travelling at 25 or 30 miles an hour silently, and in particular with the logos of quite major companies on the back of their riders' rucksacks, represent a significant challenge to legal use of the road system.
My Lords, the noble lady is quite correct to ask the question about illegal e-scooters, but likewise cyclists, who seem to have an ever-expanding space on our roads, do not pay road tax, they don't pay insurance. Do the government have any plans to look at that issue?
I don't recall now whether the Noble Baroness was one of the speakers in the debate that we had before Christmas on this subject in this House, but there are significant challenges with putting forward both legislation about licensing and about insurance of bicycles. And of course, we do want to encourage the safe and sensible use of bicycles, because it's good. Active travel is good for the health of the nation. We will consider that further in the road safety strategy, but not to the extent that it deters people from cycling.
My Lords, the government came to power promising to do better than its predecessor. There's a perfectly respectable libertarian argument, I suppose, that you shouldn't have any regulation of e-scooters and e-bikes, that irrespective of product safety, they should be allowed to go where they want, at whatever speed they want. People might want to make that argument. It seems to me that that is in practice now the government's position. There is no regulation. There has been no regulation for a long time. There's no regulation coming, and there's very, very little enforcement. I pay credit to the police forces that do take enforcement occasionally. Will the government just be honest and say they're happy with that position, and that's they intend to let that run?
Well, I'd refer the Noble Lord to the answer to a very similar question that he asked me on the 1st of April, where actually I did say that I didn't then much care to be lectured about drift by somebody who represents a party that did an experiment in 2021, published some results in 2022 and then did nothing, and I think that remains the case today.
My Lords, we currently have a perfect storm with e-scooters. Already reference to the fact that there is no need to register them. It's illegal to use them on roads, public roads and pavements. And also, there is no registration when you actually buy the e-scooter either. So wouldn't the first step for this to be to ensure that when somebody buys an e-scooter, because you are supposed to have a driver's licence, provisional or full, they have to give their driving licence details over, which would then be logged with that particular e-scooter?
I very much respect the Noble Baroness's view about the safety of these things, particularly from the point of view of anybody with a mobility difficulty or disability. But this is only one of the things that needs to be contemplated carefully in introducing legislation, simply because the legislation has to work in practice. I think we are learning some things from the controlled trials that the department has sponsored. And in fact, I'm sure she will know that the e-scooters concerned are identifiable in a way that the ones purchased from retailers aren't. But I think we also have to be realistic about what you can expect retailers to actually do in these circumstances. We are, as I say, deeply considering this. I know it's an issue of great concern to this House, and it's the question on which I've answered questions most frequently since I came here. So we are working hard at it. But it is a difficult area, and the rules that we put in place have to have some chance of being enforced in a way that controls behaviour.
My Lords. My Lords, I fear that the Minister is going to have even more questions. I've just managed to secure an oral question on the 10th of June about exactly this issue. But I wonder in between, would he be interested in visiting the City of London Cycle Enforcement Group, who have come up with some quite creative ways of getting people to get points on their driving licences? Because they're able to spot, as Lord Brennan mentioned, that where vehicles have been adapted to exceed 15 miles an hour, either by pressing a button that maintains the power consistently, or by just merely the size of the motor that is on these vehicles, it does lend to the question of why other forces aren't able to have the same enforcement rigour that the City of London has managed. And he might want to visit and see how they're doing it.
I'm pleased to know that I shall have to answer further questions on this in June. But in the meantime, I'm absolutely delighted that Lord Hogan Howe's raised this issue, and it's very important to publicise the good work of the City of London Police. And he's absolutely right that it's very encouraging to discover that that as a result of people riding what are in fact illegal motor vehicles, they can have their licence endorsed, or if they don't have one, the points will be put on it whenever they get one. I will try to go to see them, but actually I know exactly what he's talking about. I think it's a great model, and I would encourage other chief police officers, and I hope he will too with his previous connections, to go and witness it and then do the same, because we also know that these things are being used for crime of various sorts, and in fact the reason why the City of London Police are cracking down on it is because of mobile phone theft particularly, and it's a very effective enforcement methodology.
Third on